All right, so we're going to discuss the guitars that kind of work best on this amp. I got the back off here just to kind of show you, the tubes and stuff like that. And it's a little more exciting than looking at the front of it. But this amp, because it is a dark sounding amp, okay, it's darker than normal. So it works well with, say, your Strats and Tellys that tend to be overly bright. Guitars that are made out of maple, particularly, tend to be overly bright. So this gives you a little bit more. It mellows it out, so it allows your bright guitar to have a little more bottom end and stuff like that. The other thing is that if you're playing, and you got to be careful about the term high output pickups, because they call everything high output pickups. But if you're playing pickups, say, in the 8K ohms range output, okay, that's the beginning stages of high output pickups. That's basically the top of the, I'd call it medium output, which would be like my SG61 reissue and my SG3 over there. That's about it. Everything else I have is extremely high output. It's fine for that. You can play straight through the amp. So if you've got, say, pickups that would have been through this specific amp and sounded okay, the classic 57 out of my Gibsons, I find sound the best. Just that's my favorite, kind of straight through the amp kind of pickup. The other pickups that sound okay are the Seymour Duncan Jazz Pros. I had that in my Hammer Diablo. When I bought this, I still had my Hammer Diablo, and I did play it through it quite a bit to try it. And although a dynamic pickup will be a lot better for this amp, just because of the nature of the amp. But it depends on what kind of music you play and stuff like that. So the thing about a single pole dynamic pickup is that you get a lot of dynamics off of it. The amp is a little bit muddy, so you're going to lose a bit of clarity when you do that, but you get these really juicy tones, especially on the cleans. And when you play, like thick solos, particularly like on a Les Paul or an SG, in the rhythm pickup or the neck pickup, it's really, really, really nice. Um, Pickups like on my Holcomb guitars there, sorry for the mess, but I'm trying to find stuff for everything in the room, but like these Alpha and Omega pickups, right? I've got to play around with it because these guitars, the Flying V, the two Holcomb guitars, the 7 string and the 6 string and this 8 string, are almost too much for this amp to handle. Uh, what happens is they sound really harsh, but something I had forgotten is that this uh, number 2 input is 6 dB less, and it's meant for high output pickups. So think EMGs, Fishman Fluence, Duncan Distortions, Alpha and Omegas, all those high gain or high output pickups. Put them in that. You put them in that one, in the number 2, and it's not going to make the amp any quieter, but it's going to reduce the input signal so that's not so hot. Because if not, it's really harsh sounding coming out of the amp. The other trick, if you have really high output pickups, whether they're 4-poled or single-poled, I would recommend just like plug the guitar in and everything like that, and just leave it on standby for about 20 minutes before you play. Let the amp really warm up so it doesn't sound quite so harsh at first. Because some people don't like the distortion or the gain out of this amp. It does sound good, but the amp, you got to kind of wait for it to warm up a bit. It's not a modern distortion. It's a classic rock kind of sound, right? So those are the guitars that I think work best. If you have Strats and Tellys, even if you have Hot Rail single coils sound great through this. If you have the Clapton ones, I haven't heard the Ingve coils through this yet. Single coils, I can imagine they would sound just absolutely wonderful through this. But I've heard like the 50s, 60s, and 70s Fender single coils sound. The cleans are just absolutely incredible. So this amp is already kind of a wild, unruly, lively amp to begin with. So it will add to those guitars that are, like I say, a little more anemic. So those are the best guitars. So modern metal guitars don't really work with the high output pickups. Don't really work as well through the hot rod. Although the hottest pickup that I probably ever used through an actual hot rod, not this specific one, but one in a store, was a Gibson Core model Flying V with the 500T in it, which is a really, it's the hottest pickup I think Gibson makes, if they still make them. And it's a 4-poled pickup. And I remember when I played it through the that input too, and I was just blown away by it. It sounded good. It sounded good. But my Alpha and Omegas in the Holcomb guitars, they're even hotter than what I think the 500T was, and that kind of I still haven't quite found the right sound. It's just it sounds like everything, like there's no quiet picking with it. Everything just sounds like like just really loud, right? And it doesn't sound good. Because it just sounds like you're over. It's just the note is too hot with those pickups. So anything 8K range, you're going to get a nice sweet tone out of it with lots of output. It's going to sound good. So there's it really your guitar. The guitar to the amp does. Pairing them up does make a difference. Whereas when I'm like using this thing here, and I've got like Niagara Falls waterfall kind of distortion coming out of it. That's where the high gain pickups tend to work a bit better because they compress. This amp doesn't really compress, so. All right. Okay, we'll talk about the bad things about this amp.